Hello everybody, my name is Wick, and today I'm going to be talking about DeFi Kingdoms hero scoring only for professions, not for good summoning cards or anything of that matter. It's only going to be for professions, and this is called OPER, which is Overall Profession Efficiency Rating. Before we get started, make sure to join my guild Discord if you have any extra questions after watching this video, or if you want access to our hero monitors, information, and more. Make sure to join the Discord here. So, the main objective with this is to develop an efficiency score for each hero and each profession for that hero, and to also determine the relative efficiency of each hero in a specified profession. The flaws here will be discussed at the end of the video. We first need to understand how the professions utilize stats. So every profession in the game, which is mining, gardening, foraging, and fishing, only use 2 stats, and they do not overlap with any other profession. So for mining, it's strength and endurance. For gardening, it's wisdom and vitality. For foraging, it's dexterity and intelligence. And for fishing, it's luck and agility. Here's just some necessary background information. This is just a spreadsheet with the hero leveling statistics. We have the main class on the top and the subclass on the bottom. This might be pretty intimidating when you first look at it, but it's very, very easy to actually understand. This is all information that's just pulled from the API. These are just the percent chances of leveling up a specific stat when your hero actually levels up. So as your hero fills the XP meter, once it fills it all the way, it's going to roll for strength, endurance, all these other skills, and this is the percent chance of it actually adding a skill point to that particular skill. For example, a Dread Knight here would have an 85% chance of leveling up strength and a 77% chance of leveling up endurance if it's a main class. If you have it as a subclass, a Dread Knight will have a 21.25% chance of leveling up strength and a 19.25% chance leveling up endurance. And you can see all these other stats for every other profession and every other class here. This will be heavily referenced later in the video, so make sure to come back to this. You also have to understand hero leveling. So every time a hero levels up, it has a chance at increasing stats. And every profession, like I said, only utilizes 2 specific stats. For example, mining will only use strength and endurance. And each class has a different percent chance of leveling up each individual skill. So if we go back here and we compare a Dread Knight and a Sage, for example, a Sage has much less of a chance of leveling up strength when compared to a Dread Knight. Just continuing on that, subclass gives each hero another chance at obtaining another additional skill point for every stat. And this is just a whole separate roll. So main class is rolled one time, and then subclass is rolled after the main class. The hero rarity adds extra skill points every 5 levels for any rarity above common. I'll discuss this a little bit later. And as cards level up, the difference in profession efficiency will become extremely noticeable. I just want to give a bit of an example here. So we really have to ask, why is a mythic Dread Knight main class and Dread Knight subclass with either blue strength or endurance inherently better than a common wizard main class and wizard subclass at mining? Let's start with the pure Dread Knight that's mythic and has blue strength. This card doesn't exist, probably won't ever exist, and I literally just forged this off the website, so here it is in all of its glory. Remember that this is only taken into account upon leveling up, and that the blue stat adds 2% to the main class and 4% to the subclass percent chances of leveling up a particular stat. So we have to refer back to this slide here for these percent chances, and you can figure out every individual stat and get all of their numbers, all of their chances of leveling up for that class. So for Dread Knight, for strength, you have an 85. So Come back here, you have an 85% chance base of leveling up strength, and because it does have that blue stat modifier, it's going to have an additional 2%. So it's going to have a total of an 87% chance to level up strength once your hero levels up. Endurance has 77, Wisdom has 65, Vitality has 65, so on and so forth. So pretty much just what this means is every time this card would fill the XP meter, it's going to go and check to see if it's going to add a stat point to any particular stat. So for strength, it would have an 87% chance of receiving a skill point. So you have a much better chance of actually receiving one than you would not receiving one. You're probably going to get one off of this roll. 77 for endurance and all these other ones. And just continuing on this, the subclasses also rolled the same as main class. So you have another additional chance of receiving an additional skill point after the main class roll. So after main class is rolled, and let's say you get a couple skill points here and a couple skill points there, you're going to have a whole nother chance of getting more skill points. So by having a Dread Knight subclass, you're going to have an additional 21.25% chance base plus 4 from that blue boost, which totals to around 25.25% total chance to level up strength off of that subclass roll. And just here are all of the other numbers for the various stats. Furthermore, this is just averaging out the amount of skill points you'll receive towards each profession every time the card levels up. So for mining, this is going to be on average about 2.085 skill points every time you level up towards mining. This just means that every time your Dread Knight levels up, you're probably going to get about 2.085 skill points towards either strength or endurance or a combination of both. It's going to total to 2.085. And then gardening, similar, it's going to be 1.625, but gardening only looks at wisdom and vitality. Foraging is dexterity and intelligence, and fishing is luck and agility. We also have to understand the effect of rarity and what it does to a card and a hero. This only happens every 5 levels. Common, it doesn't have any effect. Uncommon, every 5 levels. This is for all of the rarities here. This only comes into effect every 5 levels. Uncommon will add 2 to 2 random mutually exclusive stats. This just means that it can't add 2 to the same stat. Rare is a little bit better than common. It's going to add +1 to 3 random stats. Again, mutually exclusive. They can't be added to the same stat. And then +1 to any random stat. This can be a stat that already received a point from this bonus here. For legendary, you're going to receive +1 to 3 random mutually exclusive stats. +1 to any 2 random mutually exclusive stats. Again, these can overlap. These 2 individual events can overlap, and +2 to any random stat. Same deal. This event can overlap with a stat that already received a bonus from any of these 2 other events. And then Mythic is the best at +2 to 3 random mutually exclusive stats, +1 to 3 random mutually exclusive stats, and +1 to any random stat. From this, you can also figure out the expected value of rarity and how many stats in that particular profession may potentially receive a bonus. PR, again, just means profession relevant. For common, you're not expecting any extra PR points because it doesn't have any extra bonus every 5 levels because it's just a common. Uncommon, you have about a 1 in 4 chance of receiving at least 1 profession relevant stat, and you're expecting about 1 extra PR point every 20 levels. PR, profession relevant. For mining, it would be 1 point towards strength or 1 point towards endurance. Rare is about a 50% chance, and you're expecting about 2 PR points every 20 levels. Legendary is 87.5% chance, and you're expecting about 3.5 PR points every 20 levels. And Mythic is 5 extra PR points every 20 levels. Again, this just means you're expecting a distribution of 5 points between strength and endurance for mining, for example, after those 20 levels. And a rarity's impact really has a more noticeable effect as the levels begin to increase. A mythic clone of a common card will have a total of 200 extra skill points at level 100, which is very, very significant. And a common Dread Knight has a base of 23 mining skill points without any stat modifiers. This is not including a blue or purple or green stat, and is expected to have 226 total mining skill points, which just means adding strength and endurance, the number of skill points that those have, by the time it hits level 100. A mythic clone of this exact same card will average about 25 extra profession relevant skill points at level 100. So for mining, it's going to have 25 extra points in strength and endurance, totaling to about 251 points. This means that a mythic card is about 11.06% better than a common card at level 100. So we can compare this to something like a common wizard for mining. This is really a terrible mining card. It's actually the worst mining card in the game. And this references back to slide 3 with that table of stats. For mining, you have a 30% chance of leveling up strength when you have wizard as your main class, 50% chance of leveling up endurance with wizard as your main class, and 80% for wisdom, 50% vitality, so on and so forth. But as you can notice here, this is a very significant drop from having Dread Knight as your main class. You have a much less of a chance of leveling up a profession relevant point for mining. You have much less of a chance of leveling up strength or endurance every time your card levels up. Remember, subclass is just 1/4 that of main class, so that's how you get these numbers here. And it's another separate roll, so you have a 7.5% chance of leveling up strength, 12.5 endurance, and then all these other numbers here. And when you combine these numbers, main class and subclass, for mining, you're going to average about 1 skill point per level towards mining. This just means you're going to average about 1 skill point into either strength or endurance. For gardening, it's going to be 1.625 into either wisdom and vitality. Forging's dexterity and intelligence, 1.375. Fishing is 1. This is luck and agility. So if we compare these two cards, remember this mythic Dread Knight has blue strength. It's going to average about 2.085 mining skill points into either strength or endurance every level. So every time this Dread Knight levels up, it's going to add any distribution of about 2.085 skill points. Again, you could get a little bit more lucky or less lucky and get more or less than this number. This is just an average. And you're going to average about an extra 1.25 mining skill points into either strength or endurance, again, every 5 levels. Same deal, you can get more or less lucky here. And you're expected to have about 258.5 mining points at level 100. When you compare that to a wizard and you use that same breakdown, you're expected only 111 mining skill points at level 100. So you can see there is a very significant difference here. You have to understand the effect of profession affinity on a particular hero. When you go to do a quest, a hero will only use 5 stamina per quest in that particular profession that it has the affinity for, rather than the base of 7 stamina per quest. This means that a hero with the matching profession affinity is 28.57% more efficient than a hero that does not have a matching profession affinity at that particular profession. The best way to put this is a knight with mining affinity is more efficient at mining than a knight with a foraging affinity. So, getting into the real meat and potatoes of the video here, we're going to be talking about OPER and how I developed it. OPER is overall profession efficiency rating. The thought that I had was that a mythic Dark Knight with mining affinity and either blue strength or blue endurance should be 100% efficient at mining. So just continuing on that thought, I realized that the rarity sort of multiplies the efficiency of class and subclass, and that the blue stat adds to the percent chances given by the class and the subclass. And furthermore, having a matching affinity, like I said earlier, is 28.57% more efficient than not having the affinity. And here's the real juicy part, is deriving the formula. And this can be calculated for each profession. So formula that I came up with is rarity profession multiplier. This is just the multiplier of whatever rarity the hero is. This can be rare, mythic, legendary, or whatnot. Multiplied by all of this stuff in here, which is main class stats. This is just adding the PR, the profession relevant stats for whatever profession you're doing this formula for. So if we're doing mining for this, we would be adding strength and endurance because these are the main class stats of a Dread Knight. Strength has 85, endurance is 77. These are percent chances of leveling up, which totals to 162. Added with the subclass stats. So for a Dread Knight, for mining, remember mining we're only looking at strength and endurance. You're adding 21.25 and 19.25, which gives you 40.5. You're subtracting the profession minimum stats. I'm going to explain this in the next slide here. And then you're adding X. X is equal to 6 only if the blue stat is on the desired profession. So we're doing this for mining. It would have to be on either strength or endurance. And remember, purple stat pretty much acts the same as a blue stat. It's a little bit better. And Y is added to the end here. This is equal to 28.57 only if the affinity is on the desired affinity for that profession. So for mining, it would have to be on mining. And a mythic Dread Knight with mining affinity and blue strength should be 100% efficient. So you can set it equal to 100 and you get that the mythic multiplier multiplied by 162, which is these two numbers just added up here, which is the main class, and 40.5, which is these two numbers down here, which is the subclass chances of leveling up strength and endurance. Subtracting 100, I'm going to get into this 100 on the next slide here. Adding 6 because it does have that blue stat, and then adding that 28.57 should equal out to 100. And continuing on that derived formula, this 100 here comes from the minimum possible mining stats, which would be a common wizard, no affinity, and no blue stat or purple stat on strength and endurance. I just did this because I believe this kind of card should be 0% efficient. So if you were to plug in a common wizard, which is this card right here that I outlined, into this formula, you should get 0% efficiency. So you just do some algebra here and you plug it in, you get that the mythic mining multiplier is equal to 71.48 divided by 108.5, which gives you about 65.896. So to find the rarity multipliers for every profession, you know that at level 100, a mythic card is roughly 11.06% more efficient than a common card. So you can just take these numbers, which is the mythic mining multiplier, and because you know how much more efficient this is when compared to a common card, you can just divide this by 1.1106 because common should be equal to that times 1.1106, which is 11%-ish more efficient, and you get 0.95, and you get 0.593. And just continuing, an uncommon card's about 2.2% more efficient, rare is 4.4, and legendary is 7.74% more efficient. And that's how I get these multipliers here. And you can calculate this for each profession and for every card in the game to find out the OPER for every profession on a certain card, and to find out which profession each hero is the best at. Here's just some more relevant information, some more relevant tables. PR is just profession relevant. This is just a term that I use a lot in this video. And this top table here shows the maximum possible outcomes and the minimum possible outcomes for each profession. So for mining, your maximum outcome, which is a Dread Knight, would be 162. This is just strength and endurance added together, and the minimum would be 80. This would be the wizard. And then subclass is just everything on the top divided by 4. Subclass is always just 1/4 of the main class percent chances. And then these are the derived rarity efficiency multipliers for each profession. So to really give you a good idea of how OPER scoring works, I just pulled a random card off of the tavern. This is a common archer or monk with blue luck and gardening affinity. You can refer to the previous slide and slide 3 for the data that I use here. And of course the formula. So let's start with mining. Mining, we have to find first the rarity multiplier. So let's go back to this slide before. Mining, common, rarity multiplier, 0.59319. Okay, plug it in and multiply it by all this stuff on the inside. So to get this 115, we go back to slide 3. You find archer in the main class and you add strength and endurance, or you just take that number that already has them added together at the end of the column. Throw that in here. Monk subclass 28.75 for strength and endurance. Subtract 100 because that's the minimum, and you get 25.95. For gardening, pretty much we do the same thing, just relevant for the gardening stats and using this gardening multiplier. But you can notice here at the end we add 28.57. This is because this card does in fact have the gardening affinity. So it does get this added 28.57 at the end here. Foraging, same deal. Find the multiplier, throw the stuff on the inside. You're not adding anything because it doesn't have any relevant foraging stats. Foraging is dexterity, intelligence, and you get 26.88. And then finally fishing, common. Only thing that's different here is it is adding 6 because you have blue on luck. Fishing looks at only luck and agility, and the fishing for this card would be 21.28% efficient. So as you can notice, this card isn't really that good at anything. It's not terrible at anything, but it's not that great. And that's a reason why it's sitting on the floor in the tavern here. There are some inherent flaws with this system. The first one being that the green stat is not accounted for, but overall it has a very, very small impact that diminishes as the card levels up, just because it's only a +2, and +2 doesn't really make that big of a difference in the grand scheme of things. And the initial summoning base stat luckiness is not accounted for. This just means that when a card is summoned, it has that rarity, basically the same chance that you get every 5 levels to add to certain stats. It has that as soon as it's summoned. So you might get very lucky and summon a Dread Knight with all those added skill points into profession relevant stats that otherwise a common card or a rare card might not have. I don't factor that in here. Luckiness when leveling up is also not accounted for. You could always get super lucky here and level up every stat twice every single time that your hero levels up, but that's not very likely to happen. And the last thing I don't factor in here is that different classes and rarity combos have slightly different efficiencies at level 100, but also this is somewhat negligible. I appreciate you guys watching. I know this was a very long video, very drawn out and information dense. Feel free to give it another watch or join my guild Discord and ask me any questions that you have. And I wish you luck on your new adventure.